Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. How is everybody tonight? I see people starting to come in. I'm so excited about this one. So excited. Welcome to Fiber Floozie Crime. I am Jill, and tonight we are talking about the book that we are doing for book club. So this is our first meeting for book club. Can everybody hear me okay? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay. Hello, Jeannie. Hello, Alicia. Hello, Rosie. Hello, Joan. Diamond Girl. Sharon, how are you tonight? I'm sorry to hear about your wrist. I hope that you heal very quickly. You can get back to crocheting. I have heard that that can be a little bit of a rehab for your wrist when you hurt it after a period of break. Hello, Sylvia. I'm so glad to hear that went well. That is awesome. If you just all you can do is sit and listen, that is absolutely okay. So glad that went well. Trucker Steve is here. Oh, how are you tonight? Hello, Suze. Suze is here. Hello. There's my ones. There's my ones coming in. Barbara Clark, good to see you. I'm so glad you guys are saying hello to everyone. I really appreciate it when we welcome everybody in. Oh, my hair looks good. I cut my bangs. Thank you. And I've got I'm sorry about showing, this is just a sports deal underneath because my shirts are starting to get loose on me. So they're just kind of traveling around and I've had to change everything up. So it is what it is. Yes. So hello to everybody. And this is the book we are talking about. It is finally here. We are doing our first meeting. This is the Murder Investigation Team by Steven Keogh, How Scotland Yard Really Catches Killers. If you do not have a copy of this book now, there is a link in the description box of this video where you can go and purchase the book. If you don't have the money to purchase the book, it's quite all right. We're still glad that you are here. You can still join in the discussion because it's free. It's free to be here. So I'm really glad to see everybody. I have taken some notes, but mostly I have done a lot of reading and preparing that way. Oh, loose is such a good thing. Mr. Fiber would say that too. Just saying. He's such a flirt. uh, oh my goodness. I'm feeling good. Where's my water? Oh my gosh, I got my water and didn't bring it. Hold on. Just in case y'all were wondering, this is how I'm looking. And I have the shirt I have on tonight is the Gabby Petito, in support of Gabby Petito. Okay, it's the Gabby Petito Foundation. Love doesn't hurt, break the cycle. This also, I got this necklace. It's from Avon. I bought it some time ago. And it also has it's the purple infinity, the butterfly in there. There's some little purple stones. This also was from Avon. Goes along with it. I have on my EquiSearch bracelet. So coming in October, I want to do, and my purple lovers are going to love this because we're going to make purple things in October, you guys, okay? We're going to make purple things in October. I did. Thank you. I believe it's 22 pounds now. Steve's the big loser, though. He's the big loser, right? Thank you. Hi, Bree. Yeah, Steve's the big loser. He's lost 110 pounds and maybe more. Maybe it's another 15 today. I don't know. He's just moving along. I cannot do this while I am talking. So I want to show you my project, how it's coming along. The healthy loser. Yes, I like that. This is how my project is looking. I am doing, so this is the something in red, and I am doing the co-pilot cowl. I've got my stitch marker with red on it, the little red stoppers. And this is the Kivot yarn, which is the muskox. So that is what I'm doing, but I can't work on that while I talk about this because the yarn overs and stuff are just too, I will not be able to keep up with that. I will mess something up. I just know I will mess something up. So, yeah. So, you guys, how many of you put a thumbs up in the chat if you have read any of the book? If you have read any of the book. Yay. Awesome. That's great. So the purple is going to be in October, and that will be for domestic violence, and I will be giving you more information on that. But this is also crime related, and that's why I wanted to wear the shirt for tonight. Because the Gabby Petito Foundation, we know, would never have been started had someone not taken Gabby Petito from us, from this world. Hi, Chels. She's a lurking. She just got home from work and she is mainly lurking tonight. I love you. I love you, Oliver, and I love you, Solomon. Hello, Sandy. Hope you're doing well today. Okay, so here's what I've got. I want you to know that I have put as many links down below as I could. I have posted on Facebook. I have posted. You can now go over to my website, and I've got all the links there for you as well. We are doing something in red because blood is red, y'all. And originally, I got the first book, which had this white with the red on the front of it. And the new book has come out with a different cover. Okay. You found the thumb. That's good. So that's why I wanted to do something in red. Now the rules are you can do something in red, either in crochet, in knitting, and just send me pictures of whatever you've made. And I will pull a name from the pictures that I get. Okay. And that's it. That's how easy it is. And as far as the book club, their only rules are you just read the book if you can. If you can't, just come and join in. It's all free for that. So, okay. Pretty easy rules. Now, Steven Keogh. Here's what I wanted to tell you about Steven Keogh. Let me go to I want to show you guys a little bit of a bio about Steven Keogh. Did not have this pulled up, you guys, so give me a moment here. Okay. Here we go. So this is what the cover of the book looks like now, you guys. That's the cover of the book now. This is the preface. You can actually read a little bit of that and a little bit of the introduction on Amazon. So even if you can't afford it, you can go and get a little snippet of it, maybe a little sample, and find out what it is about. And here is his website. That's the book. And there's Steven right there. Former Detective Inspector Steven Keogh joined the Metropolitan Police in 1991, spending most of his 30-year career as a detective. He joined Scotland Yard's elite anti-terrorist branch in 2002, where he spent 3 years investigating terrorism. In 2005, he received a commendation from the then commissioner, Sir Ian Blair, for the work he carried out on the London 7/7 bombings. In 2009, he joined Scotland Yard's murder investigation team, where he remained for 12 years, building up a vast knowledge of what it takes to catch killers and bring them to justice. Knowledge he wants to share with you. You can buy the book. He has a place up here where he does public speaking, consultancy. He will do consultancies through the media if anybody would like to have him come and give his opinion. He has a YouTube channel. So this is his YouTube channel. I have a link to that below for you. It's called Murder Academy. The same name as the website. He has Facebook. He has Instagram. On Instagram, he is Steven Keogh author. See if it's going to let me go there. There we go. Steven Keogh author. This is where he's been at CrimeCon in the UK. And here he is sitting with his books. He was signing books. And I sent him a message. See, I would love a signed copy, would definitely wait in line. And he said, you wouldn't have to wait long. Hello to those coming in. So I am so very excited because Steven has graciously said that when we get towards the end of the book, that he will come on the podcast and speak to us. Ooh, I'm just so fangirling. I'm telling you, I am fangirling. Okay. That is so exciting. So exciting. Oh, that's great, Donna. You've purchased the book. It's on its way. That's good. Well, I'm just glad you guys are all here and you can participate regardless. So, yep, Steve's here. It's not like Dave's not here. And hello to anyone else that I missed. Tony, I'm glad you're here. Yes, a red hat works. All right. I did put some questions up on the community page. Does anyone remember the questions from the community page? Hi, Maggie. Yes, Steve's current project is he is writing a book about Jack the Ripper and how Scotland Yard would investigate that if it were happening today. Very interesting. I'm excited about that too. Didn't see the questions? All right. So I'm going to give you question number 1 from the book. So those of you who have read should be able to answer this question. There you go. There's the question. What was Steven's favorite position on the detective team? Now, if you don't know, it's okay, but that was question number 1. There is no prize for getting that question correctly or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of prompt you guys into some different things and get you used to the fact that we're going to ask a few questions beforehand, okay? Hi, Kat. Yes. A couple of you do know the answer. Awesome. Case the case detective. Yes. There we go. The question was Stephen's favorite position on the detective team. Yes. Okay. And here is the second question that I asked, and that was, what is or what does MIT mean? What does MIT mean? If you guys know what MIT means, that one should be easy. It should be easy, whether you've read the book or not. There you go. Okay, so today we're going to talk about basically the whole first chapter. There's a preface and there's an introduction, and they pretty well make up the first chapter. I am not going to tell you everything that's in the book, okay? So I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. I don't want to tell you more information than what you would get from reading the book yourself. So I'm just going to kind of do some highlights of it. You guys have got it. That's funny. You could probably say just about anything, but that's no. Okay. So in his preface, Steve said something about people's interest in murder not being new. It's not a new thing. This whole crime related true crime, murder investigations, all of that, it's not new. It's been around for quite a while. And he quotes Edgar Allan Poe's first pub that Edgar Allan Poe published his first detective novel in 1841. I need a drink. 1841, and it was called The Murders in the Rue Morgue. And of course, we know these days there's so many crime shows. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of YouTube channels. There's tons and tons and tons of it everywhere we look now. It's hugely popular. And he says that a lot of things are very very good at portraying the murders and how they unfold. Not so good at how things actually are investigated. Okay? these things are all produced by people who have never been on an investigation team. Mostly, I'd say 90% of that is true. Okay. But not a lot of people actually know what happens inside the investigation team. So he served for 30 years as an officer with the Metropolitan Police. More than half of that time was spent as a Scotland Yard detective. And he was a part of more than 100 investigations. And the things that he talks about in the book, anything he does talk about in the book, case-wise, has already been to court. And he will not talk about anything that is not already been tried in a court, because that information is not well enough vetted. You don't know the outcome, so you would only be guessing at what was going to happen to somebody in any situation, or what happened, without being a part of that investigation either. So he's very careful with what he says about cases. Oh, but I love Luther. I'm with you on the Luther. Perry Mason, solving, yes. I know. We all of us here like to watch them, right? What are you talking about, Tony? Beer with the boys, Bohr and Ballmer's discussing how to handle bodies in various situations. That's got to be something else. Yeah, Luther. And that is not how it happens. So Stephen is very adamant about saying that the way things are portrayed, that one guy solves everything, not at all. At least not over there in the UK. Now we are going to have to understand that some of the things that we're going to talk about are going to only pertain to, and of course that's what Stephen is talking about. It's only pertaining to how things happen in the UK. How things happen in the US are different. There's some similarities, but we will get into that more later, okay? We can definitely talk about that along the way. So he started on a homicide assessment team, which they called HAT. And they had specialist vehicles dotted around London, ready to take calls. London is covered 24 hours a day, 365 days a year by 4 of Scotland Yard's murder investigation teams, each ready to respond. And he talks about how, yeah, they do, yes, exactly. And they solve it in an hour, you guys. There's no way you would go weeks. You wouldn't go weeks to find out how it ended and how, and if they caught him. Yes, that's the Luther we're talking about there, by the way. Okay. Gathering my thoughts real quick. Interesting to me, Stephen was talking about the process of getting the call, and on the way to the call, they all get in the cars, they get ready to go, and they're on their way to the call. And his process of sitting and thinking and wondering, gathering his thoughts before getting there as to what possibly could be going on with this. As a senior officer, most of the decision would fall to him, and he learned the hard way that those decisions would be poured over by lawyers who would have months to second guess the decisions he had made on the spot. That's a big point right there. So they get to where they're going, and he has all this information to gather, and the lawyers are going to nitpick all of it. And so they have to be meticulous about that information that they get from the very, very first. And that's amazing if you think about that, right? Okay. So before we start talking about his definition, he went into the definition, at least for the UK, about what murder is. Does anybody who's read this so far have any thoughts about that first part? I'm asking you guys now. Yeah, like an athlete getting in the zone before a game. Exactly. He's about ready to get to the scene, and he's got to ready himself. I mean, think about the things that they're seeing also, you guys. They're seeing a lot of really bad stuff too, you know? Yes, there's more than 30 officers in the MIT. Some of the information should not be let out to public till court, and some only the criminal and police know, and that's how they catch them. Exactly. If they give out everything they know, if the police do, they always have to hold something back, because someone who was there would know that information. That's the best way to find out if they were there. They box up their emotions. Hmm. Yeah. One can imagine that they have to put their emotions aside when they get there, and concentrate mainly. And I believe he talks about that on his channel, how you have to not. And he also, there are some interviews with him, if you look for them. If you follow his Instagram, he will tell you when he does an interview with somebody. And I've listened to several of his interviews on podcasts, and he's talked about that, how you just kind of, okay, it's the job, right? It's the job. We got to do this. But they're also thinking too, we have to, if once they have a victim, we got to do this for them and the family. So they really do get in a zone with that. That's true. There are false confessions too. And so holding back info prevents going down a rabbit hole. Exactly. Good investigators absolutely are careful about that, right? They don't want that to happen. Right. I would think it would, how you view people after all the things that you have seen. Absolutely. I would think it would definitely impact you. Um, you know, just as we are all trying to be more careful about those people we see in our life every day. Are they here to help us or to hurt us? Um, Knowing what he does about things, I would imagine it's difficult to see people differently. The same. Imagine he does see them differently. I didn't mention this necklace also. This one I got from Mr. Fiber. He got this for me in Colorado on one of our trips. I forgot to mention that. Any questions about this first part, you guys? I really wanted to do this book because of what's to come. So once we get through this first chapter and we start to get into the meat of the investigation, that's the stuff I don't know about you guys, but that's the stuff that I'm really, really can't wait. This next part is going to be talking about what like I said, what murder is there. So we will have to, at some point, we're going to have to talk about what murder is here. And I did pull up some information. Give me just one moment here. See if I can get this pulled up for you. Okay, I wanted to show you this really quickly here. And well, I'll show you here in just a minute. Let's the methodical definition of murder. Yes. The meaty parts. So I also asked you guys if you thought, this was another poll that I did before the questions, and that was the murders in the US and the murders in the UK. Which place did you think had more murders? So if you guys here can answer that question now, what do you think? Do you think there were more murders in the US, or are there more murders in the UK? Now, this is a fairly recent book, and so these statistics are going to be fairly, fairly recent. So here's what he has in the book, and I'm sure you can get this anywhere, so I can give this information out, and that is the rate of homicide per 1,000 people. Okay, per 1,000 people in the UK is 1.2. In the United States, that rate is 5.3. So yes, it is more in the US than in the UK. In Canada, it is 1.8, which is more than the UK. In Australia, it's 0.8, so less than 1 per 100,000 in Australia. New Zealand is 0.7. Brazil, right, Sharon? Brazil, 30.8. The murder rate is 30.8 per 100,000 in Brazil. Unbelievable. That's just unbelievable. Hello, Sandy. Glad you're here. I mean, we thought it was bad here, right? So, what is murder? Does anyone have any idea what the definition of murder is in the US? Oh, and by the way, I have some more little tidbits for you here, okay? Maybe cartel. I wouldn't have any idea. That's something I would have to look up. I had no idea it was that high. One country at a time. So if in the US we have, no, sorry, in the UK they have 1.2 murders per 100,000. Each MIT investigates 10 cases per year. 10. There are at least 20 teams across London. That's just London. And each team has at least 30 people. So there's a little bit of perspective when it comes to these MIT teams, these MITs. I always want to put the team on the end. All right, now let me share. So this one is from the uscode.house.gov on homicide, Part 1, Crimes and Criminal Procedure. We've got murder, we've got manslaughter, we've got the attempt to commit murder or manslaughter. There's a lot of stuff in here, but murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. Every murder perpetrated by poison, lying in wait, or any other kind of willful, deliberate, malicious, and premeditated killing, or committed in the perpetration of or attempt to perpetrate any arson, escape, murder, kidnapping, treason, espionage, sabotage, aggravated sexual abuse, or sexual abuse, child abuse, burglary, or robbery, or perpetrated as part of a pattern or practice of assault or torture against a child or children, or perpetrated from a premeditated design unlawfully and maliciously to effect the death of any human being other than him who is killed. That is murder in the first degree. Any other murder is murder in the second degree. Okay. It's very involved. So the fact that Mr. Keogh was able to take the UK definition and really hone it down was phenomenal to me, because he made a lot more sense out of things than what that reads, for sure. Okay. So in the UK, it is basically where a person of sound mind and discretion unlawfully kills any reasonable creature in being under the Queen's peace with malice aforethought. He does say that he shortened that just a bit, but there it is, right? That's the gist of it. All right. So we have a lot, and here's what I took away from some of this, you guys, is that these investigators have a lot that they are writing things on, right? Okay, so they're not the lawyers. They're not going to be trying the cases. They're trying to make sure that the person they think did it, whatever the evidence shows, that when that is brought to court, that it can be tried and they can be convicted of this murder, of the crime. Yeah, could we make that definition a little longer, please? Craziness. Okay. Of sound mind, they're not suffering from insanity. We'll get to that in a minute, but no insanity. Unlawfully kills. So there are some instances where it would be lawful, like self-defense or in line of duty. So unlawfully would be causing their death without justification or a reasonable excuse. Okay. Killing would be that either by act or omission. So that was interesting to me, because omission, I'm like, okay, so what if I told you something and I didn't give you all the information, right? I only gave you part of it. What if I did that if I intended to do that, I was intentionally omitting it, right? Yeah, so Queen's peace in his definition means that their country is not at war. So during a time when their country is not at war. Yes, that's what Queen's peace meant in that. And I don't know, like I said, we're going to be having to talk more about what the U.S. says. I'm no lawyer, so I don't really know what the U.S. says about that, about what they might say about war, but I'm thinking it would be similar here. I'd have to go in through and read this other thing, and it's so wordy that I don't want to do that right now. Oh, you referring to the U.S.? Well, he was talking about in Queen's Peace, and that's what that meant there. So the act would like be an assault, stabbing, shooting, beating. Omission would be um, like a doctor who held back treatment could be an omission, which caused someone's death. He held back treatment and caused someone's death. That is an act of omission. That is also considered killing. In order to prove murder, there has to be a direct link between the act or omission and the death of the victim. Okay? If that act or omission hadn't happened, would the person have died? So that's where it comes in. We start talking about what the jury gets told, and what the jury decides is the correct information, and they have to figure all of that out after listening to all of the evidence. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Sharon. I'm sorry. I don't know what you mean. You'd have to give me an example of what you mean to be sure that you are what you are saying. So there's two things that they look at, the investigators, when it comes to the murder. Did they unlawfully kill a person? And did they intend to kill them or cause serious harm? And that is what Stephen always calls the intent, is the cause, or not intent, or the action, which is to cause serious harm. Hey, Ola Joe. Okay, so you're talking about other countries and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a little bit, I think that's a little bit different than what we're talking about. But the manner of murder, yeah. Did they intend to kill them? Was there a did they mean to cause serious harm? So also, this says homicide. So what is the difference? Anybody know what is the difference between homicide and murder? It sounds like a class, but I don't mean it to sound like a class. It's just this first part, we kind of have to get through that. I think she means crimes against humanity. Yeah. I think that's a much broader thing than what we're looking at here. That's how I would put that, as a little more, that's like country to country, and you know. So between murder and homicide. So murder really relates to one offense, whereas homicide is more of a term that incorporates several things. So like if I go back to this definition, here it talks about murder manslaughter, the attempt to commit murder, manslaughter, protection of officers and employees of the United States, misconduct or neglect of ship officers, murder or manslaughter of foreign officials, conspiracy to murder, murder by a fellow. All of these fall under homicide. They're not all murders, but they all fall under a broad term. Well, they are murders, but they fall under a term of homicide. Is what I'm. That's the difference between homicide and murder. Hey, Deneen. Awesome. Glad you're here. Glad you're listening. And thank you to those of you who are in the attic, as I say, my lurkers. I'm glad to have you as well. I know you're out there, Gracie. And Natalie, thank you for watching. She always watches back. I love my replayers that replay my videos. You guys mean a lot to me as well. So, self-defense, insanity are the defenses to murder, right? If somebody has a defense, it will fall under insanity, it will fall under self-defense, it will, and or something else. There's something called partial defense. Welcome back, Sandy. So those are some of what's called a statutory defense in the UK, and I don't know if we call those statutory over here, but those the insanity and the self-defense are something that would keep you. I knew you were here, Gracie. I'm so appreciative. Gracie has been, and happy birthday to your granddaughter. I know we have lots of birthdays this month, so anybody who's got a birthday this month, happy birthday to them too. So, I mean, there's probably a lot of things that we think would pertain to someone who could get off of the murder charge, but insanity and self-defense are actual defenses that, if they are proven, can get somebody off of a murder. And we have insanity, and this was interesting to me, you guys, but what is insanity? If somebody can just say, well, I just wasn't thinking straight, is that insanity? I don't know where I was. Is that insanity? I hear of things called temporary insanity. Okay, well, he was temporary insane while it was happening. I don't know how much I agree with that. Do y'all agree with that one, temporary insanity? My grandson, Oliver, is having a birthday soon, too. Bree, that's a good point. The definition of insanity is the action of doing the same thing over and over again without a different result. Exactly. I know it. Right? If you know what you're doing, how could you be insane? And I don't like it when they bring it up either. They're always trying to prove that the poor guy was just insane. That's what happened. He was insane. Absolutely. That's pretty good. I like that. So if they are deemed insane at the time of a killing, okay, then they're not guilty. And a complete defense means the defendant will not be found guilty of any offense in relation to the killing. So A complete defense, which would be insanity or self-defense, those are a complete defense. Okay, so they won't be guilty. So insanity is suffering from a defect of reason or a disease of the mind. They have to be unable to understand what they were doing or unable to understand that what they were doing was wrong. Right. Come on, Bubby. Come on. You're going to have to wait for your other thing. It's time for the green toy to get treats in it. It's going to have to wait. Cerberus is now under my feet. He was looking at me. He knows what time it is. And most of the time when people say that they were they had mental illness, there's always experts brought in. Most of the time it does not work. It's really very rare that anyone is found not guilty by reason of insanity. It's very rare. The self-defense, a person finds them in a violent situation and may defend themselves using force that is reasonable to the circumstances. Reasonable comes down to what is going to come down to the jury again. This is why I think anything that's related to intent is very interesting. Like, what did the person intend to do? Intent is a huge part of a trial. And I see this all the time when I'm watching trials. It's huge. They're always trying to get to the bottom what they really intended to do. What did this, I'm watching the Piketon massacres, the Pike County massacres. I'm watching that trial now. This is the first trial where anyone is on trial for, others have been to court, but not to trial. And the ones that have been to court have been giving their take on what they as a family. So this is one family against another family, if anybody is familiar with that. And right now they're trying to portray what exactly, or bring to light what exactly this family's intent was in these murders. So it's very interesting to me. And I like to watch, I know one of them like to watch the court stuff. So does the person using the force honestly believe that it was reasonable and necessary? Okay. And secondly, does the jury consider that a reasonable person would use force, would regard that force as reasonable and necessary, given the facts that the defendant that had at the time? So those are two things that have to hold true in order to be a self-defense. That's what they are saying. They're saying that it was because the grandchild, they did not want that family to have the grandchild. There was an allegation of abuse also. Not necessarily just that. But yes. Yes. So That would come to whether it was necessary. Did they feel it was necessary? Yes. And see, and I don't know that they would take it as far as to say, did you think you would die? I don't know if it would go as far as they thought that. But I guess that's the same thing. Life in danger or die is the same thing. So I guess, I mean, it's right in there. Yes. And if you guys can think of questions for Steven, email me questions from the book, from anything we talked about that we need clarification on from the book, or his thoughts. I want you to know you can start emailing me your questions, and um, I will gather those up, and then when we have him on, that we can ask him live some of those questions, because I think that would be a good thing. Okay, partial defense leads to something called voluntary manslaughter. Self-defense and insanity, unlike those, a partial defense would be something like the person would still be convicted of a crime, but lesser. So it would not be murder. It would be life in jail or something like that. Okay. So when it comes to partial defense, uh, they don't get the same amount of time. They don't get the same sentences as those who actually committed, that where the it that when they're found to be of guilty of murder per se. Okay, so voluntary manslaughter is different. So they may have a diminished responsibility, is an example of that. You've got a diminished responsibility, loss of control, and a suicide pact are some of the examples of that. So diminished responsibility would be something like the defendant's state of mind at the time of the killing. So now we go back to whether that was temporary insanity or were they just diminished at the time. I believe that gets talked about during the cases. It's not talked about in the definitions here that he lays out. So I think he talks about that back into the actual cases. So if they have an impairity of some sort that impairs their ability to understand that what they were doing, or form a rational judgment or exercise any kind of self control. So when somebody says they lost control, that could be, if it is found to be true, that they did not intend to hurt someone, they didn't intend to for them to die. It could be a diminished responsibility. So a person who's having like a psychosis, they might think that they were killing someone that had some sort of a conspiracy against them, like, or maybe they thought that that person was something different than what that person was. I want to say drugs would fall into this. That's a good question, Bree. I don't know, but I had that same thought when I read this, is I wondered if drugs fall into that. So maybe you are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Would that be diminished? I know they call that diminished capacity. Okay. But then again, are we talking about intent? It says here, like something like this, the psychosis affected their rational judgment. So maybe so. Maybe drugs and alcohol is part of that. The bar for insanity is a lot higher than a diminished capacity. There has to be, definitely has to be proven that somebody is insane as opposed to diminished capacity, diminished responsibility. And then losing control. That's actually in here. I always kind of thought that somebody who said, well, I just lost control, I'm like, well, how can they get off of something based on the fact that they lost control? They don't always get off. They typically get something called voluntary manslaughter when they lose control, as opposed to actually getting off of it, because that's not really a full defense. It's not a complete defense. It is a partial defense. So I hope that's, y'all would have to read the book and how these definitions come out, because I'm only skimming over that. You don't think that it falls, Barbara does not think it falls under diminished responsibility. Yeah. Yes, sleepwalking, that fascinated me. There's been so many very famous cases about sleepwalking and how they just that they got manslaughter. That came down to partial defense. Yeah. And that one is fascinating to me. Whether they were or they weren't sleepwalking. Do they know what's going on or don't they? It's really hard. I'm trying to think. There was one where a guy killed a girl that he'd known her for years. And he swore up and down that he was sleepwalking. Cannot remember the name right now. The suicide pact is just what it sounds like. And so there's another case about that. There was a young man that he was sitting in his truck. He'd been talking to this girl for months about killing himself. She'd been telling him she was going to kill herself. And he finally turned on, he blocked off his exhaust, and he turned on his vehicle, and he sat in his vehicle, and he killed himself in his vehicle, and she was on the phone with him. So there was a huge case about whether she was responsible or not. Huge. Well, so that's, I don't see anything in here about bullying per se. I think it would go to intent. Okay. But that's a good question. So you guys email those questions to me so I don't forget, please. Now, involuntary manslaughter is whether someone had the intention to kill or cause serious harm. Okay. So if they didn't intend to do it, then it's involuntary. So, two types of involuntary manslaughter are the unlawful and dangerous act or gross negligence. Okay, so gross negligence could be in a work environment where, something like carbon monoxide gets out and nobody meant for that to happen. Unlawful or dangerous act is like one of those. There's been some of these recently where somebody got hit and they hit the ground and their head hit the ground so hard it killed them. They wound up dying. That winds up being involuntary manslaughter. They meant to hurt them. They meant to smack them, but they didn't mean to kill them. I'm guessing there would be a lot of overlap, but I'm also guessing that their wording will be different and that maybe I know that in the US that we have different laws in different states. So there might be some different things come into play based on what it takes to put somebody away. Okay. That's my understanding of a little bit of a difference in them. But yeah, I think it's very close. I think there is some overlap. Okay. Then we're going to get now this. I'm going to go over this very briefly. That's the murder part. And there was another fact in here. Did you know that the homicide rate is higher in London than any other part of England or Wales? Interesting. Yeah, the big picture, I would say there is definitely some overlap, but that was something that I was, you know, you'd have to go and look side by side, right? So again, the aim of the investigation, anybody know? What is the aim of the investigation? So we've got a murder investigation team. What do they want to do? What is their aim to, what do they aim to do? It very well could be population. Bree is asking if that murder rate, the homicide rate, and I think so because London is the biggest city. Secure secure a proper conviction in court, catch the killer and find the cause of death, follow the evidence, gather what is necessary to convict, secure a safe and proper conviction. Uh-huh. So he calls it a big goal and little goal. So the big goal is secure a safe and proper conviction at court. And the little goals are everything it takes to get there. Now, what types of murder investigations? So that gets back to where we talked about over here, we were talking about all the different types of homicide, right? Okay. So what types of investigations? So some of the ones that they investigate are domestic homicides by partners or from within the family, mental health related, gang related, criminal activity like robbery, burglary, drug dealing, sex acts, confrontations like pub fights and disrespectful looks, and serial killers, um, terrorism, mass homicides. And like I said, there are up to 30 people on the team. And that's what I wanted to quickly go over who is on the team here. Okay. So here's the team. You have in the Metropolitan Police, you have a MIT, which became a permanent thing in the early 2000s. There are now 20 permanent MITs based in different locations across London. Each team has around 30 people, a DCI, two DIs, four detective sergeants, 18 detective constables, four or five non-police officers who are on staff at the police, department. Um, you have to apply to join the MIT. You can't just be on it and get transferred over to it. You have to apply and be approved to be on the MIT. There's an application, there's an interview, all of that. And Steven's talked about that before. And during the investigation, they all have different roles, okay? And their roles can be fluid, as in, one guy may help another guy out with something. But the senior investigating officer is called the SIO, is usually a DCI, detective. DCI would be, forget what DCI is, a detective inspector. Chief inspector is the DCI. The DI is the detective inspector. I haven't told you all this, but I have a little bit of bursitis in my right hip. So you see me shifting a little bit. I'm just kind of giving myself a little bit more stretch in that leg. And the DCI is a name that will be associated with the case. The investigating officer would perform the role working closely with the SIO. They're like the deputy. They make the high-level decisions for the case. The case officer, now we talked about this earlier, and he says this role would be carried out by one of the detective sergeants. Their job is to ensure all officers are working towards the investigative strategies. They're usually the ones who prepare reports for the Crown Prosecution Service, the court, and will be the point of contact between them and the MIT. When it comes to trial, it is the case officer who represents the team at court. There's a family liaison, of course, that, is the person between the team and the family to give them information. There's an exhibits officer that has all of the evidence and makes sure that the evidence is ready for court, so that each piece has its own number. All of that keeps track of all of the evidence for court. And what I thought was interesting about the exhibits officer is that they are present at the crime scene at postmortems. That was interesting to me. The CCT officer, of course, closed circuit television. There's cameras everywhere. Someone has to gather all of that information. The intelligence officer, they look for criminal records, any registered informants, police databases. They maintain the records for the case to keep everything maintained for the case. And when gathering intelligence, they have to gather it about the victim as well, and that goes into victimology. Y'all know about victimology? Anybody know about victimology and what that means? If you don't, you should be watching Profiling Evil, as Mike goes into what victimology is quite a bit. So does Ken Maines from Unsolved No More. And I have Ken's book also that I would like to. Is that here? I do. This is Ken Maines, Unsolved No More. He has a YouTube channel as well. He talks a lot about the victimology also. We're probably going to read that book during the book club too. Victimology and suspectology. Yes. Yes, exactly. So you have a disclosure officer. Who'd have known you had to have somebody in charge of what information is going to be disclosed? Again, we talked about this. You've got to make sure that stuff doesn't get out that doesn't need to get out. Communications officer, modern communications, uh, mobile phones, all of that data has to be collected. The interviewing officers that go out and they canvass the neighborhood. They have to interview suspects. They get a lot of training on that. And I would like to ask Stephen about the training they get with interviewing, because I keep wondering if theirs is anything like ours. We keep hearing all of the debates about, well, they pressed him so hard they just confessed, and all of those things, right? I think that would be a good question for him too. And he does say his favorite role was the case officer. He said it was the most rewarding. You live and breathe the investigation more than any detective on the team. And he said that when he took the promotion to DI, he knew he would not perform that anymore, and it was hard. It was hard to give that up. The first police force in England were known as the Bow Street Runners. They were formed in London in 1749 by a magistrate called Henry Fielding. They were established to help tackle highway robbery, and its foundation consisted of 6 men. The Metropolitan Police was formed in 1829. Okay. Woo woo. That's the first chapter, you guys. The next chapter, the meaty stuff, is going to be crime scene. Anybody have anything to share about the book anymore? I hope y'all are okay with how I went. I did not want to just, I hope it was interesting, especially for those who haven't read it also. So I hope it was interesting. Again, any questions, just send them to my email and I will be sure and keep track of them so that I can ask Mr. Keogh. Hold on, I'm going to have to mute myself real quick. Sorry about that. So I know it's a lot of, but he really lays it out very well. When you read the book, he lays all that out to a point where it's what, if you read through it, it makes more sense. So I encourage you to get the book if you have not. And did you guys tell me what you are making? Tony was making a red hat. Diamond Girl, I believe, was it yours that I saw in the Facebook group? The project you are making? I am making, this is called the Co-Pilot Cowl. And I linked the pattern in the first video. Oh, I didn't tell him who it was, Chelsea, but that's okay. I muted myself. I got to call Papa back too. He called also. So I got to call him back. The book is very insightful. I can't wait to get into the writing. Those are really cool. I like those boho bags. You're tattling on it. See, your children will always tattle on themselves. Just give them time. Oh, we love you, Chels. Crochet shawl or poncho, and haven't started anything in the red yet. Sandy's working on the co-pilot. That's right. And you started another one. You're liking it? It's it goes pretty quick. You should know by next time what you're making. Okay. Hello, Lisa. A new queen size blanket. Awesome. I have so many projects going right now. It's just crazy. Crazy. Doing a hat. Awesome. Farther on into the book, I will be able to reveal to you the prize. So I don't have that put together right now, but I will. We'll get there. Okay, now on Friday, I want to finish up with the Kelsey Barrett case that I started while I was in Colorado. So that's what we're going to finish up on Friday. So when we finish here, you guys are going to be redirected over there. I'm not guaranteeing that we're going to be talking about this next week because this next chapter is a lot. So on that note, let me kind of scan here and tell you guys what we're going to talk about here, okay? I think we might in chapter 2, we're going to go over the crime scene up until page 32 till we get to the forensic evidence. Okay. So let's go over the crime scene up until the forensic evidence. So that will be our next one. And I want to give you guys a couple of weeks, probably a couple of weeks to get through that. How's that sound? You guys think a couple of weeks to catch up with the first part and into that one? And I had intended to do this at 11 a.m. and I realized I had another appointment and I could not do it. So, but it will be, our Tuesday lives will be at 11 a.m. Yes. Good. Good deal. You know, on typically information, it's a brain thing, but typically information for us to truly remember it and be able to recall it takes 16 times. We hear it 16 times in different ways, and then it tends to stick. That's the average. Yes, 11 a.m. Central Time. Okay, Sylvia, I am getting off of here. Thank you all for sticking with me on this first part. I hope I didn't go on too long. I appreciate you guys so very much. Good night, Oliver. Good night, Solomon. If you're not already in bed, you should be soon. I love you, Chelsea. I love you, Carrie. Love you, Mr. Fiber. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all who are replaying. I appreciate you all very much too. Email me if you have any questions. Leave me some comments down below on what you thought, and I will talk to you later. You guys have an amazing night, and I will see you on Friday.